Now, my painting desk is actually so unbelievably cold. It's in the coldest corner of my house, and England is not warm at the moment. I'm not sure if I can paint accurately. So, what we shall be doing is scraping down some bases. Which obviously there's a few more exciting tasks in the world, but because this one's simple, it should allow me to be completely free to ask whatever questions people have. You know, any subject is absolutely fine. Do let me know. The reason I'm scraping these down is with the speed corn wibble wobble. Hey guys, if I do miss anything, do feel free to repeat it. So the reason I'm scraping these down is for the speed painted kind of DOK, being Demons of Corn, not Daughters of Cain, army that we're looking to be doing in the near future. Haven't really thought this ahead. I don't know what grit my sandpaper is. Hopefully that's not deafening for people. Hello, happy Christmas to you too. I think it was a Tom. Sorry if I've missed your name, mate. Tom, have you messaged support? Tom Ratcliffe. Hey, Tlaroth. Tlaroth? Tieroth? How are what, sorry? You're already experiencing my incredible lack of multitasking ability. Welcome if anyone is new. I'm just sitting here preparing some bases for the corn army, hence the big bloodthirster to the left, rather. Evening from the Netherlands. Oh, how are you, by the way? The comments keep flashing up and down. I'm not too bad, mate. It's been a busy year. I'll be glad to see 2021 for sure. I wouldn't recommend trying to run a couple of businesses in a year like this year for your sanity, honestly. But we've come out of it and we're looking pretty good. I flail my hand, mate. Cheers. Hopefully I'm slightly more controlled than that. But sweet adjective. I feel really, really elegant and precise now. Okay, so this has been less effective than I was hoping for. Can we focus on this? Oh, we can, surprisingly well, actually. So I was hoping for it to do more than that. I'm going to see if I've got anything. All right, I don't have grits on these. Apologies. That was 600. This is less. This is kind of heavy. This is like garden level industrial. Hey, Lawrence, how are you, mate? Can't okay, knife is off screen. Thank you for your constant checks on my welfare, guys. You're here to keep me safe. Apologies on the subject of my own welfare for the wound that I've got on the back of my hand. If I tape it up, it gets really soft and it's not good for the healing process. So that's what I get for doing hardcore gardening next to really, really sharp objects. So I guess that the warnings were warranted. If anyone's got any questions about any part of anything, by the way, it could be about the speed painting army that we're going to engage in a couple of thousand followers time, so probably early next year. It could be about the lockdown army. Obviously we're still working on that. It's got the exquisite looking, I don't know, what's it called, the Keeper Secrets with Wings? I should do a competition for what to name this. I can't think, there's probably some stupid pun out there, but something of secrets. Yeah. Someone was literally talking to me about Flory models recently. They were talking about, they've got sanding sticks or something like that. Lord Byron. Yeah, I've been renamed, mate. Sounds very Game of Thrones, doesn't it? Okay, so we've tried pretty coarse, not coarse enough. I think I've got, there we go. This is basically covered in gravel. How loud is this, by the way? Am I deafening people? I can see if I can hold it further away from the mic. If so, really sweet choice here, Byron. Great, great for the audios. So that's worked much better. I didn't want the same amount of texture. Also, I'm going to be using crackle paint, and I don't think using crackle paint over something super shiny, and I mean, this is essentially a gloss finish, guys. It's plastic, it's not been primed. And I guess I could prime it and then put my crackle paint on, but I'm going to do this and then prime it and then put my crackle paint on, just to be kind of belt and braces approach. Whatever that comment was, it will pop up again soon. Luke, could you do me a favour? Could you bring me the red doggy model that's on the banister? All right, that one's about better. So super coarse is the answer for this. I guess it's much more heavy duty than something I'd normally be doing, and it's a large flat surface. Thank you. Right, okay, so just to give people an idea, this is just a demon that I experimented on a while back. Interestingly, this has just got inks and then black to white dry brushing on it. It's airbrushed inks. There's no like clever fading with the airbrush to get this kind of highlighty effect. Apart from using the yellow on the brighter parts, it's just a result of dry brushing, same with the veins and all that. So this is the model, that's the army's theme, and then probably this is going to be the paint scheme. One question, that's a great question, mate. Do you accept faults in your painting, and do you move on or try and fix them? I think that the comments are flashing up and down, so let me know, like, do feel free to correct me if that was me misreading. Generally speaking, mate, if it's major, I'll fix it. Otherwise, I will try and hide it with my next stage. So that means that perhaps, unless it's something that I can hide with weathering or something like that, I'm more likely to fix mistakes in the last third of my painting, last 25% of my painting, because they're more likely to show up because there's less things to be able to potentially hide them. Hopefully that's a good answer. All right. So we've settled on our sandpaper of choice. Now this still has some texture on it. I think I'll do a bit of this, and then I'll go like hell for leather off screen at some point in the future. Like if this is quiet when I'm sanding, then let me know, because I'll carry on doing it like all the way aggressively, but I don't want to deafen people. The big dude or the little doggy. Bloodthirst is an incredible model. All the greater demons are just out of this world. They did such a brilliant job on bringing the old classics to life, in my eyes. It seems kind of silly that I'm changing them at all. Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Grimgar. So we're really going for this. You didn't expect to tune on for me to be using power tools, did you guys? Finally bought some Huldra Blue. We'll probably use it as a base for my Tzeentch demons. Perfect, mate. Bloodthirster. No worries, mate. So, George, this is a aggressive sanding pad. This is literally what you would use to, it's for like painters and decorators to sand down walls that can be painted, or for sanding down wood for like carpentry uses. So it's a really industrial sanding sponge. This is a modeling sanding sponge, all delicate, all precise, got the grit written on it, all beautiful, pliable. And then this is the like the heavy duty alternative. I'd normally use the others and prefer them, and this wouldn't normally touch a model, but facing and terrain has some exceptions. That's what I've used this for in the past. I use it to remove large parts of terrain really quick, or sand terrain that's been badly molded, because I believe some of the terrain goes through a less precise molding process. At least as GW are concerned, I think the terrain goes through a less precise molding process than the miniatures. So something more aggressive for cleaning them is great. Yeah, this is doing some good work. So the difference is that once these have been primed, I'm putting a texture paint on, and I want that to go on a matte surface, even if it's on a primed matte surface. Just matte is more helpful. It absorbs more. It's more fluffy and less shiny, basically. And I want them to be physically smoother as well. So I want to take away those lumps and bumps, because I'm meant to be having kind of pools there, and I think that the effect will look better. It might allow me to gloss varnish them afterwards to make them look properly shiny. So that is the reason for doing what I'm doing, and also it's a precursor to the fact that this army I'm going to try and paint in 24 hours. I believe that's going to be 24 hours straight, because I'm a sadist. So you guys can get to watch that. Good evening. Hello there. Any questions at all, guys? Fire away. Can be about color schemes, can be about the speed painting army we're going to be doing. The video is going to be about planning, by the way, because I think that's the most important part of any painting, but of speed painting especially, because you don't have time to think. So you may as well do your thinking before you start, especially if you're doing it in one go, which is the only reason I might not do it in one go, is if I think that it's impeding my ability to think and function. But I might be able to push through for 24 hours straight. So people will have seen the Great Unclean one before. If anyone's got any questions about him, that's cool. I'll grab him, and I can rotate what's in the corner of my screen. We'll put the keeper up first, actually, to avoid major interruptions. So any questions about this model, do feel free to go in. What am I painting? I'm not painting anything currently. I'm preparing for Demons of Khorne speed painting army. It's going to be 2,000 points, mate. Balls deep. I'm going for a hardcore approach. So the only reason it wouldn't be 2,000 points is if I've already painted one aspect of it. So like if I do a test Bloodthirster, for example, then it'd be 1,720 points, or you know, whatever it'd be at. But I'll be making my way up to a 2,000 point army and probably doing 100%, like 80% at least of a 2,000 point army, I would imagine. I think it's kind of more appropriate to try and do it on the nose. Do I have any favourite paint brands? Prep work is tedious, it is. Oh god, it's bloody awful. How sturdy how sturdy is this model? Dude, like properly. Like I think this bit is more sturdy than the rest of it, honestly, because it's even got green stuff bolstering it now. Let me try and, I believe I can aid the lighting on this. Give me a sec. Okay. Yeah, okay, that shows up better like that. So as you can see, we've got the green stuff kind of strengthening this part. It's I don't know how much force I'm putting on, but I got pretty strong hands being a climber, and this is sturdy AF, like really, 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 really strong. So yeah, it's worked phenomenally well. I really hope the other wing can be that much. Like I would be the least worried about dropping this model out of any large conversion I've ever made currently. If anything's going to break, it's going to be like something that isn't our converted bit. Sorry, while answering that, I may have missed a couple of questions. Feel free to pop them through again. So you can ask questions about anything, but I'm just putting these guys here to give you some visual prompts to help. Hey from New York City, hoping to pick up some of the Series D brushes this Christmas. Oh, fantastic, mate. Does that mean that you're going to pick them up, or do you think they're maybe under your tree from a special someone who's awesome at picking the best presents? I just did some sweet wingman in there, if you're both watching. Or spoiled it, you know. Either way. So any questions at all about the Keeper of Secrets? That is one of my favourite models GW have ever made, by the way, so it's weird that I've picked to change it. Using Matthew's wing was a stroke of genius. Yeah, it's every now and again you happen upon something and you're like, this is just right. Like in the video about it, I showed my Ghoul King on foot conversion, which is a Savage Orc Big Boss lower, well, almost entirety, and then I swapped the head round, and that works out as treats. So some things just work. Your wife is spoiling you. Good lass. You've picked a good one. That might have been asked already. Thank you for the prompt. What's my favourite way of picking paints? Or what's my favourite paint brand? I couldn't tell which. My favourite paint brands really change. So I use GW actually, I think. Maybe like 50% of what I use is GW. And then the rest is probably equal among Vallejo, Scale 75, AK Interactive, and Monument. I know that's a lot of different brands, but I think they've all got a lot to add. And probably the only reason there's so much GW in there is from force of habit. And I also try for videos to try and use paints that most people can get hold of. And that's not so easy with stuff that isn't GW. So that's the reason that I kind of focus on those, unless there's a paint where it does something like really differently, in which case that's why I use Hydra Blue, I use Monuments White, you know, the cliches that appear on the channel that aren't the GW colours, fluorescents from other brands, etc. Good question. Leave with only one wing, go all Sephiroth on your armies. Great idea. How important do I think varnishing is? Oh, in some cases, mate, it is absolutely essential. And even if it's not essential, in a lot of cases, it just saves you time, dude, or makes it less worrying or something like that. I think someone asked did someone ask how I pick colours before? Sorry, I've got the all the apparatus in front of my face while I try and multitask, and I can't multitask anyway. So I'll answer it anyway, because it's probably a good question. How do I pick colours? I often start with one particular colour in mind. And I mean, like, you know, the ones that I'm going to mention, but let's say I really want an army to be blue-green because I am in love with turquoise, then I might go red-orange for the rest of it. Or if I want blue and green to be part of it, and blue-green, then I might pick red-orange, or I might go for something something a bit more funky and just be like, well, I've got blue-green, I would go orange and then violet, and just, you know, I base a little bit of off that, and then sometimes there'll be two colours, and I just try and figure out how to make them work exactly. So if I wanted to use an orange and a turquoise, then I'd play around with the wheel until I found, if I was at a loss, then I'd play around with something at the wheel. The other thing is there's colours like silver, black, white, some very neutral bone colours. They just don't screw with any paint schemes whatsoever, so it can be a good idea to include them as a bold and significant part of your colour. And what that will do is it'll add contrast into your paint job without screwing with anything. Good question. To the person that I think asked that like ages ago. I'm just checking if there's been more. Do feel free to post them again if there have though. Trying to get a nice smooth finish on this. Yeah, this is definitely worth doing. I think most of my pools are probably going to be around the edge, so I can probably get away with leaving more lumps in the middle, which is convenient because it's easier to sand the edges than it is to sand the center. Don't ask me what grit this is. Like 300 maybe, 200. That is not something I ever thought I'd be able to try and tell by hand at any point in my life, the grit of sandpaper. Comments are not coming through, so either they've slowed down or they've just not popped up for a bit. Do feel free to ask again if I haven't answered your question. It's not because I've chosen to not answer it, it's just because I've missed it. All right, so looking way smoother here. Get this close to camera. It's got these little lines on, but it's already better. I might jump to a fine one to finish it. So it can go straight to 600 here, so twice the grittage. That's probably not the phrase, but twice the grit of our previous one. There we go. Lovely, lovely smooth finish on that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab Paps. I'll grab Papa Nurgle. And I'm going to pop him on screen, and then if anyone's got any questions about him, because he was particularly popular and he's kind of like a seminal D subject, I'll be happy to answer those. 1 second. All right, we've returned probably amidst a load of rustles. Oh, a load of questions just came through. If it's bugged, sorry. With an electric machine, you can, mate, but with so little to grip, the difficulty is you can't. If they had a handle or something, you could glue handles to them. Maybe that would be more efficient, like gluing some sprues and holding that. But if you're using a belt, you could maybe use a belt sander, But if you were using a circular sander or something like that, it would just catch hold of it and then throw it somewhere. But maybe a belt sander would work well. Do you still really enjoy painting, and do you ever suffer from hobby burnout? If I can learn to read. Yes, to both of them, a lot. So I absolutely love painting. I don't get as much time to paint for myself as I would like. That's not because I'm doing this painting necessarily, although this does keep me busy, but it's just because 2020 has been a pretty hectic year, and I'm really missing painting at the moment. I'd love to do some personal projects of my own. It's been quite a while since I've got to kind of do something fancy, and that's part of the reason for the lockdown army. The next thing I do for myself, I want to really push the boat out, and this one I'm going to try to push the boat out on the converting, but maybe also on the painting too, because I can do precise kind of fancy painting, but I don't tend to for the channel. I'm painting black clothes right now. In my opinion, what's the most difficult colours to paint? It's just flashed away. In my opinion, most difficult colours to paint. Red's still difficult. I think that's, it's the old cliche, but it's definitely not an easy colour, and it's also difficult to photograph, which I think compounds the issues, because often you'll paint it and you'll think you've done a pretty solid job, and then if you put it on camera and send it to a mate, you'll be like, well, maybe it isn't that good. But I think it's both hard and hard to photograph. Some people struggle with metallics, and bones can also be difficult, I find, in pale flesh and bones. I think they're the tricky ones. Some colours, I think colours which can go up to crazy bright, they are more forgiving because it's easy to get high contrast on them. So probably the subtle stuff, like if you're trying to do like a nuanced red or something, I'd say that's the stuff that's the most tricky. But there are some really good paints out there for every colour, which really help. And a lot of the time when people think stuff looks bad, I think it's because they've used multiple brands on it. The brands have got different finishes, and they're actually just saying like GW satin base paint for the first layer, and then like super matte scale 75, and then like somewhere in the middle Vallejo as a highlight. And you look at it and you think, well, it doesn't look smooth. Actually, if you varnished all of that so it had the same finish, then it would look smooth. So I think it's even more of a deal on the colours that are already harder, your reds, etc. So questions about Papa are most welcome. Hey Byron, Marex, Mr. Artis, and yourself. So thank you, Richard. Do you ever paint non-metallic metals? I do. I'll tell you what, after a little bit, I'll go and grab one of my old good paint jobs, and that's in NMM. I'm not a master by any means, but I can give it a good bash on some of my own personal high-level stuff. I'll go and get that now. You can stare at the big boy while I'm away. Oh, he's evil, isn't he? All right, so you have returned. You're going to see some stuff from when I used to paint properly in bunny ears. These are probably a little bit dusty because they've not been out for like literally over a year in the case of this guy. Let me get a clean extra large. All right, so here you go. It's home done fat removal. Yes, he was pretty dusty. He's probably looking a lot better now than he did. That gauntlet's probably one of the nicer things that I've painted, I think. So I do paint non-metallic metal and can paint non-metallic metal to a fairly decent standard if I have time. I'm not speedy at it by any means. This is a combination of scale 75 and Vallejo, I believe. The base coat might be GW. Thanks, guys. The cape's airbrushed, actually. And then this is all painstaking. The gloves and the knee pads, for the gloves are the bit that I'm the happiest with. Thank you. And then I've got, this one won't be as good, but this is my first model where I started getting the idea of non-metallic metal, I would say. And how I got this one is by painting it a kind of a mid-grey. And I used a lot of washes. I used blue washes and black washes to push the shades towards the recesses, and he came out quite well. He's got a pretty cool shield as well. That one took some work, I can tell you. And his face came out nicely as well. And I don't think I'm very strong at faces, so I was always pleased with this guy's face. Oh, he's dusty as well. Oh dear. Could look much nicer. Notice there's some cracking on this guy. He was fine cast and had a poopy cloak, and I primed it several times on purpose from behind to try and smooth it out, and he's cracked like an old painting. Cracked like, you know, when you go to a gallery. Look at that. So didn't realise that would be something that would happen a year later. How does he go on his base? He's got pins. I just pulled him off because the base is huge, but he's got pins in the bottom of his little props by his ribbons. Okay, let's bring Papa back. He is an attention seeker, isn't he? Look at that. How could you look at anything else when that is on the screen? So one base. Let's get another one. More Space Wolves. I could do some more Space Wolves. I really liked the I just like the depth that we got with the stippling on the ones that we did. I think they're interesting. Very, very interesting recipients for dry brushing, because you can get a lot of nuance in those colours. I think I have no huge issues with the general Space Wolf screen, but it's a bit pastel in there, in my opinion, especially on, you know, like they're often on snow bases and stuff like that, and there's often not too much depth maybe in their beards, but they tend to be a bit washed out. Their skin's pretty pale generally. Painting darker skin on Space Wolves I think is a great way to get some good contrast in there. But yeah, they end up a little drab, and I think that with D you can put some really interesting stuff in the shadows with them. So I'm a huge fan of them. Maybe their models are a bit fussy for me. I like the colours, but their models have got a lot of crap on them, and I don't like having extra stuff on models, which is, you know, why I've got demons on the table. Oh, the Alt Looters are cool, mate. Loads of chances for weathering. Ever tempted to go up Mr. Nurgle? Yeah, if I put him on a base permanently and he was in a personal army, I probably would have, dude. I wasn't sure how it would look in photography, and I wasn't confident enough to do it well for a video, and I knew that if I did do it on him, people would want to know how I did it, and I don't think I'm fantastic at it. So maybe when I've got a better method myself, I'll put some more goo on things. All right, so it's a good thing I picked sanding a base, because if I was painting, I would have got nothing done. I've just answered questions and spoken about armies and recording and stuff. Keep the questions coming, guys. I'll rotate to the lockdown army, whatever he is, soon. Oh, have I locked anything down? Good question. Cheers, dude. Just help me segue, or I could swagway if I needed to. So I think it's going to involve a very warm orange, like a lovely, lovely warm ochre-y orange, slightly autumnal scheme, but I think that is going to be able to mix with a very like deep, dark, rich, moist green. I know I've used a lot of expressive words there, but that's what I want, like these vibrant, maybe a bit more dry looking oranges in places, whether it's like rust or perhaps even skin tones or like blotching on skin, and then green in the recesses, and probably some purple, because purple works as a shade with both of those. So that's the idea that I've got. I do not know how to grimdark that, and I don't know whether I should abandon the idea of trying to do something grimdark. Maybe I should be doing it on models that I haven't spent, you know, like tens and tens and tens of hours, but like I've spent about 10 hours on that guy's base, never mind never mind before getting to paint him. So maybe doing like a an attempt at a 2-hour paint scheme on him won't do him justice, but at the same time it could be really characterful and expressive and fit the creepy theme, so I'm at a bit of a loss. The idea is I'd have those 3 colours, so I don't know if that corresponds to anything. I'd be interested to see, actually. Oh, it does! Okay, so this is, I mean, yeah, this is exactly why some things work. So as I said, I want a deep orange, and I want to mix that with like a deep wet green and a purple violet. And what I could do is I could go all the way to yellow orange, and then yellow orange, red violet, and blue green would do it. I might be tempted to kind of skew this a little bit more back to like there, like violet, if it's like a compass point, like violet, violet, red, violet, rather than violet, red, violet, or red, violet, because I like the bluey purples in the shadows. But that is probably the scheme there. So the triad, this one, and this one that I would be going for, I think. And then what I want to do is the magical energy will be represented potentially by a brighter yellowy green, which is going to mix the 2 colors together. But also I'd have the option to do like blue crackling energy, which I think could look striking against that background as well. So that's my thinking so far. I don't know, you know, like exactly what paints I'm going to use or anything like that, and I'm super open for suggestions. So guys, the lockdown, or not the lockdown video, rather the speed painting video, the subject of it is going to be, it's going to be all about preparation and how essential it is for getting good results all of the time, but especially when you're speed painting. So I am trying to practice what I preach. I'm going to change the angle of this, otherwise you won't be able to see. You won't be able to see this model so well. Apologies if anyone gets seasick. Okay, there he is in all of his glory. So that's not the Corn Army, that is the Lockdown Army there, the big chap. So any more questions about that, do rock on. Typical me, look at that messy desk, covered in plastic shavings. Nurgle, just in capitals, Nurgle. Have you ever painted a Nurgle Glockin? I would love to paint a Nurgle Glockin. I really, really would. It's an awesome model. I think I could probably do it. It's got people on top, but I reckon 5 hours, maybe 6. I could do a good job of a Glockin. Not the base, but the model. Great question, Richard. So yes and no. So that I think the naked texture is really nice for testing on, but we are trying to mimic our models here, and our models have been primed with primer. So primer is really good for that reason. If you want to exactly get what you're going to get, like here or here, here. So you want to be able to test and get exactly the same results on this as you will do on that, or as close as possible. So priming is good for that reason. The other reason why I prefer working against a prime one, which is always going to be a dark one, is it makes it easier for your eyes to focus on the model. If your eye were a camera and it's on a white desk, it's going to have a much harder time getting that white balance sorted and you know, make out depth within the thing that isn't white. And if it's darker, it's easier for your eyes and the camera to make out the depth within your model. So you end up straining less, and it's not something you would clock perhaps like in the moment, but it is a good idea to try and make things easier on your body while painting. Also, kind of third really important part of priming it is if you want to find colors that cover well and you prime it black and you test something on your palette and it covers instantly, it's going to do that on your model. So it's really helpful for that as well. All right, there we go. Been wobbling the camera up and being so vigorous, so that's worked out all right. 2 down, this is going to take a long time, isn't it? I've just seen some more questions pop up. They will pop up again. Maybe I tap the screen. Don't know. Okay, so every time I see that conversion, I'm in awe of it. It inspires me to do a Nurgle Demon Prince Kit Bash. Oh, it look amazing, dude. Look absolutely incredible. It's a really, really good theme to play around with, and as I've covered on the video, it's actually quite forgiving to do like the stereotypical chaosy stuff. Definitely not the Slaanesh stuff, as covered most recently, because it's very fancy. But yeah. See you, Mr. Quirk. Yeah, chaos is helpful, dude. Oh no, that's right, they were blue tacked. How do you paint GW? Do you paint GW models only? What are your hopes for Age of Sigmar in 2021? I have painted some Star Wars Legion. And I've been hugely impressed by this stuff. Not this, because it's resin, and it was very not fun to assemble, and their plastic is amazing to assemble, and the cast quality is out of this world. Like, I've not seen anything rival GW, so the Star Wars Legion stuff, yes, and I'm not against painting other things, but I want to do something that the most people are likely to click, and therefore be able to benefit from the painting tips, and that tends to be GW. Also, I'm using texture-based techniques, so either it's got to be like really finely designed and cast resin in a very high quality, and you know, people aren't particularly into the idea of me painting busts a lot, I wouldn't imagine. So maybe I'll do some in the future, but I wouldn't imagine that would become a regular thing. Or it's got to be, you know, like high quality GW or Star Wars Legion or something else where they've got really precise molding. Dry brushing and washing and texture-based techniques, they pick up imperfections in casting or design like nobody's business. So you've got to use some damn good stuff, otherwise it belittles the technique, I think. Oh, good luck for the bases for your full 2,000 points. Don't worry, mate. There's going to be 25 bases. I've thought carefully about 2,000 points, and in the planning stage, I decided to not be an idiot and do a low model count army. Hey there, Nicholas. I am sanding bases, so this army here, which you can see has got the kind of the glow effect, whatever it would be, magical lava pool stuff. Standard GW bases are actually fairly highly textured in comparison to things that are completely flat. So I'm trying to take stuff from this level to this level, and this should make a much more realistic kind of reflective pool base. So that is the reason why. Always surprises me how much texture there is here. I think importantly, it's not very absorbent texture, so the peaks of it really show up paint because they're so smooth. So even just lightly buffing this with a 600 grit, if you're going to do some fancy stuff on your basing, even just buffing this like to this level can be really helpful in general painting, because whatever you put on it, primer or paint or stuff like that otherwise. So even just doing that on your bases can be a good idea. I'd recommend people trying that out, especially if you're using texture paints. That's something I've only discovered and realized recently, put together in my brain, but it does help the texture paints crack more aggressively, which I think looks more striking. A handler might be a power tool, I'm guessing. So with a circular sander, there's not enough purchase on this to be able to grip it, and it'll grab it and pull it away, but I think you can maybe use a belt sander on them, potentially. You just have to be careful because you need to be able to hold, like, whatever that is, 4 millimeters quite firmly. If it was a big thing, I'd use power tools. So any more questions about the lockdown army? And if I've missed anything, then let me know and just put it again. Would you recommend using Scale 75 normal range for dry brushing selectively? George, very good question. So they can clag a bit. What I would recommend is, if you've got a color you really want to use, you can put a tiny bit of ink in there. You can put a tiny bit of a wet layering paint in there. Most, like any GW layer that is similar to your color would do. Or you could even put a bit of a wash in or something, and that will wet it down. Don't do that with your dry brush necessarily, and if you do, pull it in carefully, but add a little bit and you should find the paint becoming more tactile for dry brushing. Can you do a tutorial on the Fane of Slaanesh Blue portal, please? That's the one held Is that the one held by the hand that's got the most horrible gap in it known to man from like the last decade of GW models? I choose to not be an idiot and choose to a low model count. Looks over at my Tyranid horde. Ah, dude, we've all been there. I've got like 120 Savage Oryx upstairs. Someone, I believe, asked a really good question about airbrushing earlier, which I was going to get to, but I answered one and then couldn't remember exactly what it was. If someone wants to post that again, that'd be really good. Am I going to kit bash some units? Yeah, I am, dude. 1 second. So probably using these models with the Citadel skulls, bird skulls in them and stuff like that is going to be one of the ideas. And then just some kind of generic creepy, culty, mutated stuff, which I might start with the kind of the Warcry warbands on. Oh, someone asked me, do I only paint Age of Sigmar models, or am I looking forwards to Age of Sigmar models? This is the second part of a question. Clarify which one it is, and I'll be happy to answer. I love the Age of Sigmar range; it's obscenely good. Says 40k, but AOS is where my heart is if I'm going to paint stuff. Do you think a dry brush technique will work on 3D printed terrain? It depends on the quality of the terrain, dude, exactly for the reasons that you specified with the lines. Sometimes the lines can work out. So if you're doing like I've dry brushed a piece of Necron style futuristic terrain and the steps just made it look kind of very robotic. So it was fine, I was doing it in metal, but otherwise they can show up for more normally for worse than for better. So it depends on the quality. Liquid green stuff smoothing basis, that's not a bad idea. Let's see if I can I scroll through these? I'm going to go and find some previous questions that I've missed. Could you just varnish them? The varnish dries, it pulls slightly more in the recesses, but it does touch everything unless it's extremely wet, which is a fine line to get, dude. So that's a good point, Chris, but I think you can maybe do like 2 or 3 layers of varnish and get a similar effect. PVA, does PVA do the opposite of what I was saying for the varnish? How you started using the dampening pad? Most people have to be convinced, but the results don't lie. How did you come up with it? Honest answer, I always lick my brush, and I just thought, well, you know, why wouldn't I lick my dry brush? And that's kind of where we ended up going from, but it's not very predictable and you shouldn't put paint in your mouth. Other than minis, what other hobbies am I into? Climbing, dude. Bit of weightlifting, but mostly climbing. I could do with more of both of those because I've put on lockdown weight. What are your hopes for AOS in 2021? That was the question from Overbite. Thank you, dude, for repeating it. So, honestly, I think that there's some of the armies are in a pretty unhelpful state, and I was disappointed that AOS 2 did not change the game enough, genuinely. I think the goalposts could have been shifted much more aggressively, and that would have reset. And one of the best times of any game is when it's reset and no one's figured it out yet. And that lasts longer if you change it more each time. Obviously, I'm not saying change for change's sake, but the last one barely changed anything, and the armies that were good again, like with the exception of some points. Oh, I'm live. My phone tried to update. Apologies there, guys. I didn't put on lockdown weight. I certainly did, dude. Absolutely did. Is this entertaining enough for you guys? Because I can turn it around and talk to the camera if me doing the most boring sounding known to man is, unless you're tuning in for my audiobook reading capabilities, which you're kind of getting the full experience of now because not much is happening on camera, let's face it. I can anything that doesn't involve like super dexterous work I can probably do. So if you want me to demonstrate like mixing on a palette or talk you around different aspects of a brush or talk generally about dry brushing or anything or any specific products, do let me know. It's good for me, I just like your voice while I'm doing some hubbing myself. That's, I guess, over 100 videos maybe I've helped build up that association. It is going to be close to 100 soon, I imagine, actually, given when we started in the year and the fact that we've been doing like 1 or 2 or 3 a week. I think on average it's been 2. All right, so that's looking much smoother. So we've got 3 sanded bases. These feel really nice. I think maybe there is probably a way out there to do it. Maybe actually there could be some renegade way of pressing these into something that holds them really well, and then using a power tool on top of them and having them gripped by the surface underneath. I don't know what that would be though. Maybe some like some putty or something, some really strong double-sided tape. Nice. As I said before, in case you guys missed it, it's the outsides that I need to be the smoothest. I'm studying at uni after I'm looking into working at commission work and painting miniatures. Do you have any advice or tips going in the right direction to make a job of it? That is a fantastic question, and I'm actually pretty qualified to answer that because I was a commission painter before I started Element 8 years ago. So you just, dude, you need time management. That's it. That's where all commission painters who struggle fall down. Unless they are absolute Jesus level and can charge a really good amount for their hourly rate, and people of that level of talent and efficiency are extremely rare. It's about efficiency. You need to make your efficiency of communication with your clients, of your advertising and your outreach, because you've got to let people know about what you're doing. You've got to make that really efficient and make your model painting really efficient, and you have to know where to not be a perfectionist, because perfectionists, I believe, get pretty effed by the hourly wage, and I've done it myself for nearly 2 years, so I've got a fair bit of information on that, and it's one of the reasons that I'm such an efficient painter now. If you are looking to do, like anyone should consider doing it for a bit, if you do have the opportunity, because I think it can teach you a lot about what actually does and doesn't matter in your own personal painting. I think it can be extremely it can be really educational, but in quite a brutal fashion. It's a great option though, super flexible. Know your niche as well. If you're really good at one particular style of painting, paint up some cool stuff in that and put it out there. And don't paint up your own stuff that you think is cool. It has to be stuff that other people care about. So if you really don't try and advertise your amazing weathering on like 4th edition Bretonian knights, you know, do it on Imperial knights, that type of thing. Mini painters who inspire you or you recommend following on Instagram. All of the AO signature artists, you can find them on our website. Go down there, they are incredible. You've got like 8 or 9 just god level painters from different parts of the world. They're all with very, very different styles as well. There are some, I like the Grimdark Compendium to go completely to the other end of the scale. Not to take anything away from his painting, but you know, he's not got 5 Slayer swords or anything. That type of stuff I find really, really inspirational. I love Marco NJM, and not necessarily his painting, but I think Ninjon's videos are amongst the most I really respect. I love Squidmar's videos, but Ninjon's ones about how to do armies and how to achieve stuff, I think he's really cracked a very, very entertaining level for me. There is one ridiculously high-level painter who paints in the heavy metal style. I cannot remember his name. Is it like Durgin Paintforge? I think that's it, Durgin Paintforge. Durgin Paintforge. His stuff is insane, and he is an incredibly accurate painter, and his final results are brilliant. And he uses GW colors in really interesting ways as well, like brushing with contrast very, very finely. So I think he's amazing. Hopefully that's comprehensive enough. I've got plenty of heroes, mate. I get to work with some of them. It's a privilege. Getting through there. Guys, do repeat your questions if I've not answered them. About being a commission painter, Luke, APS. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, definitely worth doing. What's the new paintbrush set coming out? Come on, give us a hint. You know you want to. I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Couldn't possibly know what you're doing. What you're talking about. What is your faction to play as? Is it because of the models, the lore, or the challenge? I actually play AOS to a fairly decent standard, enough that I was lucky enough to be picked to play for Team England in the ETC, which is the European Team Championships, which is basically the World Cup for Age of Sigmar. Not sure if many of you all know that exists, or if any of you will, but it does. and I went there to kind of play for the country. So in recent years, I've been playing very, very hard armies. I like to take something interesting and different, but the armies have to be hard if you're going to compete internationally, like travel to another country and represent Team England, then you got to be playing something that is really, really good. So I've gravitated towards slightly different power armies, but I like even my start of my mixed order kind of the army that I became famous for playing and won the first Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament with. That was I picked that because I like dragons and monsters and elves. So it was a turquoise army of phoenixes and dragons. If you Google Byron Ord turquoise or Byron turquoise Warhammer, some pictures of it will come up, I'm sure. I've been cliched for turquoise for about a decade now. But in terms of what I choose to paint for fun, if it wasn't the gaming, and there are some armies, if I had the time, I'd pick up Flesh Eater Courts. I don't play 40k, but I'd pick up like Flesh Eater Courts, I'd pick up some of the demon armies, and there's loads of different stuff that I've got different ideas for, and a lot of that is to do with having cool themes in mind. That's a big part of what gets me excited as per this guy, but I've bashed out plenty of armies fast to get them on the table. My mixed order started out being painstaking, and then by the end I was slogging out models at a crazy speed. Still doing fancy bases, but taking a long time to paint the models. God, this is laborious. This better be worth it. Yeah, maybe Power Tool would be a good idea for this. But, you know, I picked a perfect task for answering questions. Oh, wow, more questions came in than I thought I was having. Thanks for bringing all these videos. Started figure painting a year after 20 years, so just model building, and learned a ton. Oh, thanks so much, Guido. You're most welcome. Sorry if I butchered your name. I want to paint some walls, better painting them once glued to their base. If they're big enough, paint them on their own, dude. Series M or Series S, what would you recommend for a first brush? Series S for a first brush, and then Series M, maybe 00 or 0 is where I would go for detail, but some of the bigger brushes, I quite like their breadth in comparison to their length, so the M size 1 and 2 are interesting for that, for kind of accurate washes and highlighting of like short, blunt, but small things like noses. And that's a really specific thing to say, but you haven't experienced precision until you've highlighted someone's nose with Series M. Never thought I'd hear myself say that, but it's true. Getting there on this one. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to grab some agrellan earth, because at this stage, I actually regard myself as somewhat of an expert on texture paints. I think I've learnt more about them than other people, because I've had to try and find ways to teach people how to use them for videos. So I'll give some knowledge on that once I've answered some questions. I do Blades of Corn as a competitive army. Oh, dude, they're perfect. This army, just FYI, as you're a fantasy player, it would be Council of Blood, which for people who don't know is 3 Bloodthirsters in a formation, and then it'd be a formation with Karanak and I think it's 4 units of Fleshhounds, or it might be 3 units of Fleshhounds. So the army is probably going to be 21 or 26 models. It'll be 15 of these guys, 3 or 4 of these guys, and then 1 special character who is more in the style of the dogs. I just picked him up with very, very dusty fingers. That was stupid. What is the difference between your Series S and Series M? Is there one? Not one on the store? That might have reverted to something because I did change it a while ago. Series M is a shorter, less flexible version of Series S, so it holds a little bit less paint but is less flexible. Think of it as closer to a pencil. It's more in the pencil direction of a brush. You can use it like you can use it point down without it flexing as much, and that means that you can work at 90 degrees more easily. So it's great for freehand and for chipping and that type of thing. Like 0 and 1 are especially useful for loads of stuff, and if you're doing tiny things, the double or the 0. You were talking about leaving them out to be thicker on FaceHammer the other day. Oh, you've been tuning in. All right, I'll answer that one and I'll answer chalky dry brush. So yeah, I'm going to, in fact, I'll do it the other way around. So you're most welcome, Neko. So chalky dry brush, use your dampening pad, and the tips for the dampening pad, I covered them in a recent video, which is the one with the Star Wars on it. So do go and check that one out because I talk about it more at length than I will do now. You need to put 1 drop of water in your dampening pad from the back of your brush, work it in with 1 finger, go to a clean finger, press it in, and all you need is a light sheen of moisture on that finger. That is as much moisture as you need on your brush. Then when you take your brush to it, still remove some of the moisture on your hand and test it on your palette before you go to your model. Also use the right paints. So there are some paints where you'll really struggle with anyway, like 10% of paints just come out thick. And it might be that your paint is unhelpful. Often, like there's some like, where are we? So some fantastic colors, not this one. This one, I can't really dry brush very well with this. It's just too grainy, but it paints sandy bases amazingly. It's not a bad paint, it just is a bad dry brush paint. Excuse me. So someone said about leaving texture paints out. Absolutely, dude. So when I get paints, I don't leave them sealed, which is good practice before you use paints normally. I actually have them open, and then what I do is I just leave them open at the side of my desk while I'm painting. So these are left to like literally mature and dry out, which normally would be awful for paint, but the thicker you can put your texture paint on, the thicker it is, obviously, and that means that when it cracks, it doesn't get lots of little cracks, it gets fewer but much deeper cracks. And I mean, neither of those is good or bad, but I like how striking the deeper cracks are. So anytime I'm working, I've got multiple of these around my desk. I've just got 4 of these in a row sat to my left with their lids open, like open barrels. And they're just against the wall to my left. And then I finish my session, I close them. And that is me basically trying to ruin them, but not let it go all the way. Obviously, you don't want to leave them overnight or anything like that. You might get a bad surprise, but these have probably been left open for like 10 hours in total at this stage. And it really, really makes them, for me, better, at least in terms of their capabilities as a paint. Hello, you are a little bit late. That's all right, BT. I love your tutorials. I'm getting some dry brushes soon. Oh, amazing. Thank you for your support, Viet. I got the Series D texture palette for Christmas. Really excited to start using them. Have already used a lot of your techniques with other brushes and had great effect. Appreciate your videos. You're most welcome. Like, absolute pleasure. That is what we're here for. So I'll show you putting on some texture paints. Why not? Now you could prime this, but I'm not going to. Let me find the smoothest one because that will demonstrate this the best. Ooh. All right, this one's pretty smooth. Now I'm going to use a brush that has had better days, you know, by a lot. This is my like removing paint from GW bottles brush. So I wouldn't recommend putting on texture paint with a really good brush. And if you do, just make sure you wash it afterwards. And if you're going to do anything like that with a brush, make sure it's not a small one because the big ones are far more resilient. Like use like a 2 or a 3 or something like that. So I'll grab some agrellan. And hopefully, as we're going to see from this, like when it comes, I'd be pouring that on the desk now. I'm going to get worrying. But this is much thicker than it was. And it can even be ideal for it to be even thicker than that. Like around the edge here. See? So this stuff from around the edge, the disgusting stuff where you're like, oh God, that's bad. It is, because it's on its way to going off, as much as paint does go off. But in this situation, I would argue that that makes it good. So what we're going to do here, I'll leave a couple of little wally sections and I'll push it right up and have it thick next to the edges, and then we can have these smooth pools in the bases. If you've got any flakes in there, just push them into the middle, they'll get hidden. That's one of the downsides of scooping from the areas that are right around the lip, because they will get the, they'll definitely get the thickest. Any more questions about anything at all, guys, just ask. Texture paints included. Like I said, I reckon I've not hit the 10,000. There you go, look at that. Thick glue pea. I've not hit the 10,000 hour principle on them yet, but I've definitely increased my knowledge of them quite a lot. I'm fine to answer questions about my personal painting as well. That's absolutely fine if any of you are interested in that. If you want to ask what I would do for myself or what I use as my favourite paints, or if I have styles that I don't show as much on the channel or anything, happy to talk about anything whatsoever. This is another thing you can do if you want to make it super thick. Agrellan Earth, excuse me, Agrellan Badland tends to be much thicker anyway because it's got sand in it. So you can mix up an entire batch and just putting a bit. Think of this as a way to bulk out your paint. Whoops, you know, it happens. That'll stay on my texture palette. I can learn from that at a future date. Think of this as a way to bulk out and thicken up your paint. I do wonder whether you could use flour for this. I was thinking because that would help it dry out as well, and I might try that at a future date. That could be a top tip waiting to happen. But you can mix in this thicker paint. It will make things look grainy, so that might not be the look that you're going for, but I think it can look brilliant, and I like the kind of the variety you get in it, and it does help you build up physically thicker sections, as you can see there. Let's take some of this off. That was a whoopsie, but I talk about my texture palette a lot and it building up texture. I'll leave that on. I'll let that dry out. I won't clean it off. Painting everything now, aren't I? I've just painted his scythe by accident. And then I might get to learn from that at a future date. If I'm testing out paints that I'm going to use to highlight texture paint or paint bases on my palette, I can test them out there, and it means that I'll be getting more relevant information than I would be if I was just testing them out on, you know, on normal paint that isn't texture paint. So there's no reason to kind of wipe that off. I've had that with PVA as well. Super glue, you know, it's worth having different. You can add more textures to your texture palette. It comes with them, but there's no reason to not continue adding them. All right, let me get to some more questions because I've been talking exhaustively about Agrellan Earth. Any tips for painting for competition? My local GW store is holding a comp for the monthly free model they are giving away. It depends what the model is, dude. Make it striking. See what light it's going to be painted under and paint for that. So if it's being viewed in the store, not in the cabinets, then it's going to be bad light. So you'll need to make things less subtle. If it's going to be viewed in the cabinets, then paint for, you know, like the white light from the cabinets, or if they've got harsh yellow lights, paint for that. And that could just mean, you know, if you've got really white lights in your bedroom, painting with the taking it to look under something, you know, like a standard desk lamp or a normal lamp to see what it looks like under similar lighting as theirs. And I'd pick bright colors. If there's a cool thing you can do, go for it. But most importantly, base it well. Because on a small model or a big model, you need to set it off with something. A base or a plinth is a great way to do that. My local GW, what are your thoughts on GW dry brush paints? They were really good for just picking out edges. Like if you use them on the texture paint like this, they picked out edges like nobody's business, but I can't, they weren't middle ground paints, they were just dry brush paints. And I do a bit of everything when I'm dry brushing, like smushing, blending, stippling. I tried a few techniques on a Dreadnought. I just finished recently, quite like the result. Getting the whole range of Series D brushes was a good idea. Amazing, dude. Really pleased for you. Dreadnoughts are fantastic. They got such varied angles on their panels. Thanks to great videos. I've not used their Transparence Monument yet, but I mean, if it's anything like the rest of their paints, like this is the bomb. This is absolutely phenomenal. Their red that I used recently is incredible. They're really good. Those in the AK paints I've been really impressed with this year out of the new ones that I've tried. I like to mix some of the texture paints, can get a real nice result when you do that. I have already tried that. I followed, I've forgotten his name. Dan, there's a Dan. My mind's gone blank, but there's a Dan on Instagram who's done some amazing tutorials with him that I really, really like. What techniques do you use on your own but you don't show on the channel, and why? Really slow ones, mate. Like the, let me grab the fancy model, like this guy took me a good, you know, he's you could argue that he's not even properly finished yet, and he took me a good like 25, 30 hours, I guess. He was not fast, and that's just not practical. It's been a busy year for work. I run a couple of businesses, and it's just not practical for me to get content out in that way. At some point in the future, we'll probably test out what happens if we put out one video and it's of me painting something crazy. You know, like maybe one video in 2 weeks rather than 2 videos each week. Try it a couple of times to see if people are into it. But yeah, you're already mixing it. I am. Can you show pictures of your Ariel the Ever Queen? She's very unfinished, but I can go and grab her in a second. How much airbrushing do you do? I keep hearing that. Yeah, it's a compressor under my desk. I should turn it off. I do a fair bit when it's for my work. I mix it with dry brushing a lot as well, and I want to demonstrate more of that in the future. Moisture is a thing. It definitely is a thing. Wet blending with Monument Transparency is amazing for easy shadows. Do them over a contrast or something shaded already. Wow. I'm interested in that. That is definitely interesting. All right, so that's going to take forever to dry, so we can't learn any more from him. He's kind of served his purpose. My Alarial is literally a beetle dude, but I can go and get it to show it because it's got a crazy base. It's probably a bit too big. 1 second. I said it was a big base. I'd done that teenage thing of exactly cleaning the area that I was going to be using, and now because I'm zooming out, you get to see what state my desk's in. Sorry, guys. So that's where she was up to. So she's been very carefully pre-shaded, like really carefully pre-shaded with the airbrush to a high level, but I haven't gone any further. And then I started working out the areas where I want things to be lighter, and I started doing some actual glazing as stuff as well on them. But I'm not sure where I'll end up going with this. I've always loved this model, but it's a very hard one to paint well, in my opinion. He's a big boy, isn't he? What a beast. That base is great, though. I really like that base. Oh, I didn't glue his head on. Or it's fallen off in the cabinet. Yeah, look at that. It's a dinner plate. This one came out super smooth. This is using the technique that I showed before. Where's that lip? There it is, look at that. I did a good job there. It's easier on larger bases to get a smoother end result using the plastic bending technique. And round is easier than oval as well, so. That's Alariel's beetle's head falling off. You guys are really enjoying sending me to my cabinet and back, aren't you? Not a fan of the Stormcast, but that's seriously nice model. Oh, thank you so much. We definitely need more people showing off what you can achieve. Tired of people constantly under the impression of base coat and wash is all you need for a good model. I mean, you can do some good stuff with that selectively. I like to involve. That's one of the reasons I like dry brushing so much. You can do base coat and wash and involve dry brushing, and then you get to look like you did far more than you actually did. I did Weird Knob Shame and Smoke, literally Blood Angels red and transparent orange, red to blue. Oh wow, mate. At us on Instagram. If you use hashtag AOPainter, I would love to see that. Phone for this, Lauren's. I use phone because I'm bad at technology and I can't get it wrong. So even if it could be slightly higher quality, it means that I don't have to go back and re-record things because, you know, I wasn't in focus or stuff like that. And I'm at a very small desk and it's just practical. Nice highlight, thank you. Could have taken us to your cabinet. Things are a bit messy, but I could take you to my cabinet. Good idea, mate. Audio quality is going to get worse. Apologies. Right. The lighting isn't fantastic in here. This is my order army. Oh, can I put it? No, I can't put a light on from my phone, so I can't do much more about the light here. Apologies, guys. This is my turquoise army. There is the Phoenix leader. That's the Karl Franz on Deathclaw model with a High Elf on Dragon Rider on top of it. And I use that as my kind of leading Frostheart Phoenix. I really, really like how that came out. He has a stripy bum, which I can get out of the cabinet. He's going to fall off his base now, and it's going to be really unhelpful. Grab him by his tail. Okay, so hopefully this shows up nicely on camera. He's got a really cool, he's snow leopard butt. So I looked at snow leopards whilst painting his fur and tried to emulate it. He came out nicely. So that's all like the fancy, nicely painted elf stuff. These guys have got incredible blades. This is the best freehand banner I've done. It looks actually really like a wolf, so I was very pleased with that. I'm making such a mess for me to tidy up afterwards. And then these guys, their blades came out really, really well, but they never actually got finished. But they're some of the nicest weapons I've painted. And you can see the basing theme for the entire army is kind of ghostly and cool and blue, which fits with everything being ghostly and cool and blue, or turquoisey. Down here, that's when I added some lizardmen in when it was really mixed. There's the elf dragon there. He's got a lovely base, that model. And then down to the addition of some fire slayers, more dryads, a tree man, and then at the very bottom we've got some order stuff there, including a Balthazar Gelt whose hand has maybe fallen. Oh no, his hand hasn't fallen off. He's just an old model with very small hands. So yeah, there was a lot in here. Oh, I'll show you something actually out of interest for people. I hope this is interesting. If it's not, I'm sorry. That is one of my favorite models GW have ever made, and it's just the champion of the Iron Breakers, but he's awesome. These guys were actually just airbrushed, washed, and dry brushed once, and they're a couple of stages away from being incredible, in my opinion. Yeah, it turned out really well. Texture palettes, yeah, we've had really high demand recently, and we're just trying to catch up safely with COVID restrictions. It will probably be about a week and a bit, dude. Not too long to wait, hopefully, though. It depends where you are in the queue for where your order would be. Thank you for kind words about my models. Let me find them again. Amazing army. I love the Snow Leopard scheme. The banner is amazing. You're welcome. Cheers, guys. I've got plenty more than that. But this is just the turquoise ones. This is just the order ones. There's some blood letters down here and a tiny bit of corn. These guys, I sanded the eyes off. You can see here, and they turned out really creepy and cool. Yeah, lots of blue, mate. It's I do quite like turquoise. It is my thing. You might have heard on the channel before. I think that's it. That's of interest. Let's grab this guy. I'll take this guy back to better the light. Leave my cabinet there. So, hopefully you enjoyed the trip to my cabinet. Back to the painting desk. This model I painted at a David Soper Masterclass, and the Masterclass was amazing, and I wasn't brilliant, but I learned quite a lot. So people were asking about my non-metallic metal and if I paint larger things. Well, here is that. It's both of those in that one model. See if I can get. Where are the wolves from? Which wolves? There, so he turned out really nicely. I painted him with Stippling and David Colours paints, David Soper's Colours and Scheme from his paint class. It's a really heavy model this, it's metal. People ask about metal as well. This is why I don't do many metal models, look at that. He's got so much weight to him, this guy. David actually strained himself painting his for so long because he was hunched up, and it's like this thing weighs a lot for a model, like it really does, and it's tall as well, so because of physics, he weighs even more. But it's a very, very cool model. People just call it the Fish Knight. I think it's called Abyssal Warlord. There isn't a Patreon, Lawrence. Thank you very much for asking. Though you can support us by purchasing something from our website, purchasing some of our brushes. That would be massively appreciated. To show that corrector. Sorry, Jose, I don't understand. Or Jose. What's my favourite thing I've painted all year? Okay. I use those as chariots, the Kernoff and a wolf. They were used as the Dark Elf chariot, and I also used Balthazar Gelt on one as a Hurricanum. You do get a crisp high five, but it's a Corona safe one, so that means that you don't. Yeah, lots of blue. Well, thanks for your interest in them, guys. If people would be interested in my own personal collections more in the future, then I can absolutely, I can prepare something and get things ready for camera and show you like one of my speed armies or something else. Favorite thing I've painted this year, I like for me, the Gargan, I think I was really pleased with. I also really like the Black Templar. I know it was fairly simple, but I think that scheme and that palette just works really nicely. Cool, dude. I'll get out my Savages at some point and you can see me painting to a low standard because, you know, I think it's interesting to show the full length and breadth of what I've done and achieved. I've got loads of stuff around though. Most of this stuff needs to go in cabinets and would have been going in storage for taking to shows. But, you know, no shows happen for a year, so I've just got a collection literally piling up behind me. Tell you what I will do, actually. One of my favourite things I've painted this year is this boy. Let me pull the camera back. Look at him, just look at that shine. This thing came out so well. So well, so much fun, such simple techniques. Really cohesive, enjoyable. Look at that gun, it's just from wiping as well. The wiping feels like cheating, definitely. So that's one of my favourite things I painted this year for sure. I would like to spend some time scratching him and weathering him a bit more, doing a high-end paint job on him, pushing the contrast maybe. I was thinking maybe you could do some clever stuff with oil washes where you did like a fat oil wash of a brown and then maybe you do like a purple brown and you do it thinner and remove more of it and you end up with layered highlights in the recesses, which would be really interesting. I've painted a McFarlane action figure at some point in the past, but it wasn't an action figure, it was a dragon. I would love to paint one of the McFarlane ones. I believe there's a big waiting time for them. Is it about 3 months at the moment? I didn't do any more giants. Make a website of Pixie models. That's not a bad idea, actually. Yeah, we've prioritized customers initially, and then we are prioritizing retailers in kind of reverse chronological order as supplies allow at the moment. But it's a difficult time period to negotiate Corona with kind of manufacture. It's not been an easy one, and we've expanded in popularity as well, which I can thank all of you so much for your support. But yeah, this year it's if it wasn't for it being 2020, we would have been fine. Yeah, the working your way up the model is a really important thing. Makes such a big difference. All right then, guys, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. I'm going to pop off in about 5 minutes. If you have any more questions you'd like to ask, then absolutely go for it. Happy to answer them about any type of painting, any type of color, any type of process, any product. If you want to know how I'd approach a paint scheme that you've got in mind for your models, then I'm happy to answer that as well. This is already nearly dried out on my texture palette. The reason that we've got this on the table, guys, is that this is roughly what our paint scheme is going to be for our speed painting army. How am I so good at painting? I've painted for a long time and I try my best to learn from my mistakes. I wouldn't say I'm technically an amazing painter in terms of like precision or anything like that, but I am obsessive and I hold processes in mind and I try to be efficient. So I think that's where my strengths are. You have just missed the entire thing, mate, but you can watch it back. We're going to leave this one up for a bit. Do you say, yes, the texture palette is, I haven't, but I can do. It's for testing your paint before you go to your model, cleaning your brushes, and the idea is that once you've played around here, you'll have exactly the right amount of paint on the brush, then you can take it to here, and you'll know how it's going to behave on your model, and it stops you from making mistakes on your model. It's a learning tool, and it's a productive tool to have on the table. Have you ever used resin much for water? I haven't. I need to try that loads more. Color suggestions for dry brushing: blue and pink colors. Oh, you poor dude, you're gonna have like 200 in an army, I imagine. I think one of the best ways to go about it is use washes, use dry brushing, and go from a light center to a dark purple exterior. So make their hands and feet darker with purple. So go from light blue in their tummies, darker blue, deep blue, magenta, purple as you go out. And I think that's an easy way to do it. You can use washing and dry brushing kind of mixed together and airbrushing, and it works really well. How do you paint tree revenants with purple skin? I take both of them up to the same bone to keep them coherent. Actually, so there's loads of different bone colors out there, but yeah, taking them up to the same bone color, I think, would be a nice way to get coherence. So you can wash them with different things and stuff like that. You can wash both with purple and then the brown with like a deep brown, a warm brown. But yeah, I'd take them up to the same color to keep coherency. How do you set apart Lumineth? How do you set the Lumineth army apart from the rest? Do you mean visually, or do you mean within like a mixed army? I don't understand the question fully. How do you edge highlight whites? Okay, really good question, dude. So number one, so what I tended to do, and I did on my prime that I just had on the screen a minute ago, I highlighted this up to scale 75 white, and then as a final white, I used a Vallejo white at the time, but these days I would use this white from Monument. So I went to a soft white, which would be any white that is, you know, like not a crazy powerful one, but particularly scale 75 was quite soft. And then I saved that bad boy or something like that bad boy for the final steps, and that's kind of a shocker. So when I do non-metallic metal or stuff like that, I tend to go like GW for base coat, less opaque like scale 75 for the middle, and then I go back to maybe GW or another really opaque one for the final steps, and that's what I found really useful. Okay, Night Lord's Army, Pro Acryl paints. Any suggestions on how to approach the tarnished gold trim? Maybe using primarily Pro Acryl. Use glazes over it, dude, to drag it back. So I would mix the gold with the silver, and then I'd pull it back down with other colors and take it up with silver again. Try not to lose all of the gold, but you'll get rid of quite a lot of it, and that will help with the tarnished look. Oh, thanks, coach. I love to see it. Vegan brushes. Stick around, and we're going to be trying to make something that is more suitable for use with oils, and that is one of the considerations for the range. We'd already have them out if it wasn't for 2020, so maybe something for next year. That's from gardening, dude. It's sorry, it's out on camera. It's just I need it to be dry, not wet. I had plasters on because I was recording last week, and it slowed down the healing, so I'm trying to help it out. Jake, add in some grey to your shadows. It's all about contrast, dude. So maybe don't go up to a white. You just use all the off-whites and then only use an actual white for the very, very edges. But you can exaggerate it by putting some cooler, darker colours in the recesses. You know, you've got colours like Celeste Grey. You've got Ulthuan Grey. This is a great one because it looks white until you put it next to white, and then it's really not. So colours like that can be really useful too. All right then, guys, that is it. Thank you very much for sticking around. I'll answer one last question because it's just been clarified. So with the new elves, what the Lumineth, what I would do with them is I'd take, like, I think they're very martial as an army, and I think that the solid schemes for martial stuff go with classics from history. So you've got like you've got the Crusades, white and red. You've got like kind of feudal Asian cool styles with red and gold trim. That's also corn, obviously, but you know, it makes me think of very martial armies. But then you've got other associations of like the more evil looking side of things. So just black armor, silver trim looks great. I wouldn't be doing anything, I don't think, if I was doing it for myself, other than trying to make it look like a Black Templar with silver trim or something, like exactly like the scheme I use with a cool blue black, and then the warm weathering. And I'd make my army look like it had walked back from fighting a war, because that to me is the strength of them. It's certainly not their cow helmets, because they're not to my liking, but I love the spearmen and stuff. Gardening is dangerous, dude. Thank you so much, guys, for the kind comments. So stay safe, and I'll catch you in the near future. Do pop your suggestions for any future comment down below, and any suggestions for how to go about the speed army, kind of ideas for colors and stuff like that. I think we're going to do it roughly like this, but I'm super open to anyone's thoughts. I don't exactly know what I'm doing with the basing yet. I might put some skulls on it very imaginatively. So we'll see. I'll have to see how that goes. All right, that is it. Flip this round, over and out. Move all that out of the way. So one of the reasons I like those colors so much is because they spend all their time above me. So always paint next to inspiration if possible. Turquoise behind me as well. Thanks, guys. Stay safe. I will catch you in the next video. We will be doing a Q&A at some point throughout Christmas, and we have collected all the questions to be answered in one big badass stream. So we'll be doing that later. Catch you in a bit. Bye-bye.